Innagamu jirtu ijoolleen Booranaa jirtu ijoolleen Wallaggaa jirtu ijoolleen Arsii jirtu ijoolleen Tuulamaa jirtu ijoolleen Maccaa jirtu eessa jirtu Boolee jirra jedha eessa jirtu Boolee jirra jedha eessa jirtu jirtu innagaamu duuba sana jirtu ijoolleen Oromoo jirtu ijoolleen Tuulamaa jirtu ijoolleen Maccaa jirtu ijoolleen Booranaa jirtu ijoolleen Tuulamaa jirtu ijoolleen Baareettuu jirtu eessa jirtu innagaamu Boolee jirra jedha eessa jirtu geerar naan jettu geerar naan jettu meeka'ee taleelure badi naan jettu meeka'ee qajeelure ani maalan geeraraa tanoo yaada yeelala irri geerareen quufne hidhaa qaallittii jira irri geerareen quufne hidhaa qiliinxoo jira irri geerareen quufne hidhaa karchallee jira karchallee amboo jira anoo maalan geeraraa tanoo yaada yeelala ya joollee banneen rakaa gurrabbaa ganneen rakaa Oromoon maalum godhere maalum gochuu didere yaalle hamma dandeenyu kana caala maal goonuuf xinnaas gabbarre guddaa akka wajjin bubbulluuf yaalle hamma dandeenyu kana caala maal goonuuf xinnaas gabbarre guddaa akka wajjin bubbulluuf obsuun waanuma jiru obsuun waanuma jiru obsine amma obsa erga sodaa fakkaate ka'een ishiitti cabsa nan dhoowwiinaa nan dhaqaa iddoo yartuun nu nyaarte amma isheen geessu laala akka lamuu nu nyaarrit biyyeetti ishii dabala yajoollee biyya kooti yajoollee biyya kooti hundumtuu naadhoo kooti sa'a keenya ishee burree ishee burree ishee ribbiif kennine gaadii eniit elmatan baramee qanuuf galchuu didan malee yoom beekne dubbii keessaa akka ramacii ibiddaa irra keessa dibanii nu gubuuf ayyikka yaadan rabbumaaf turre malee rabbumaaf jirra malee Harargeen mancaa qarraan tuulamni farda leenjisee roorroon daangaa dabarraan qeerroon falma murteesse innagaama Harargeen mancaa qarraan tuulamni farda leenjisee roorroon daangaa dabarraan qeerroon falma murteesse addaggeen safuun beektu ya qeerroo addaggeen safuun beektu addarra dhaaban malee falmadhu qeerroosi abdiin sabaa yoomillee falmadhu qeerroosi abdiin sabaa yoomillee abdiin sabaa yoomillee abdiin sabaa yoomillee nu beekuuf bar shororkaa'u.
Hello, welcome to Gada News Network English program. Today, I'll be joined by two prominent Oromo scholars from right here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Dr. Eshetu and Engineer Ibroshe. On this program, we'll discuss in detail about the Oromo politics in particular and the Ethiopian current affairs in general. Welcome, guests.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. Eshetu, it is really an honor to have you as my guest on Gada News Network. Can you please tell our viewers about your education background, upbringing, or any relevant information that you think our audience should know about you?
Well, first, thank you very much for Gada News Network for inviting me to have this opportunity to talk to your viewers. My name is Eshetu. I am born in Oromia, South Central, in RC province, or what you call nowadays zone. So yeah, after that, I finished my high school there and joined Haramaya University for my first degree, and did my master's in Ireland and my PhD in Germany. So now I'm living in Canada, and I've been here for the last 16 years, and I've been involved in various Oromo issues. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. Engineer Ibroshe, I know you are one of the backbone of Oromo community of not only Manitoba, but also Canada. Can you please let our viewers about your upbringing, your background, and any relevant information you want to share with our audience, please?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. For giving us this media opportunity to express our view regarding our country and also our people. Yes, indeed, my name is Ahme Ibroshe. Fortunately, that country, which is the so-called Ethiopia, 36 years ago. Now I'm a Canadian trained professional engineer, a father of 4, and living in Canada. I think that's all enough for today.
Thank you so much. Dr. Eshetu, let me start with you. It has been almost a month and a half since the war in Tigray started, and the Ethiopian government alleged this war was over. Can you please tell us what is going on in Ethiopia and in Oromia in particular these days?
Thank you again for this question. It's really unfortunate that that country is going back to war. We had war for a long time during the Derg regime, and before that, this is I'm talking open war. But during the Wayani regime as well, there was some skirmishes here and there. People are fighting for their freedom, for their rights. And since 2014, there was a significant change that happened in Ethiopia, which brought the current government to power. That's Dr. Abiy Ahmed. And at this issue is the Oromo youth who really mobilized and stood fast against the dictatorial strong army of the Wayani regime. The current government was also part and parcel of that regime. So they came as a reformer, thinking that they have done wrong. They were in the wrong direction. So people should not be treated that way. And Oromos and all other nation and nationality in that country should have an equal opportunity and equal rights in that country. With this, that reform started. Everybody knows how that happened. So many kids were killed, both from Oromia, from Amhara region, from South, in all places, people, especially the young, were revolting. And everybody looked up to these reformers, really, that there would be a change. And with this change, a significant number of political prisoners were released, and the main top powerful Uyani regime leaders were chased away, and they stationed in Tigray. Now this is where the problem started. One, the narrative the prime minister started give a wrong signal, because instead of accommodating and spearheading changes and reforms, the narratives looks different. One. The other, and the Uyani powerful people who left that significant power were threatened. And they are afraid because they've never really gave the opportunity even to the Tigray people. That is the way I feel it. And they have went back, and now there is war of words, and there is this show of military power and a lot of other things that happened during these 2.5 years. We see that there is a military show up in Tigray, military show up in Addis, and so on. This clearly indicates that they are heading towards war. And instead of sitting down and discussing and how to implement change, they resort towards war. In this aspect, there were also a certain sect of the people, especially the Ethiopianists. When we say Ethiopianists, we need to define that these are the people who want to resort back to the old system. They were really pushing the prime minister to go to war with Tigray. And because of that, the war started. Starting a war might be easy, but stopping is not really that easy. You cannot win a war. You can't stop it once it's started. The most important thing should have been to avoid starting that war. Now the war started. Maybe that mighty military show up is defeated for sure from Tigray. But the war didn't stop, because there will be skirmish here and there. And the one thing that I really disappointed by the prime minister recent speech on parliament is that he indicated there is no single civilian killed. Really? This is war, for God's sake. If you are in a war, there would be civilian casualties. You might minimize, but there would be civilian casualties. So these are some of the things. If there is no civilian casualties, if there is nothing, there could be, a possibility to give access to international medias, third parties who can really assess the level of damage. War is the least thing we can afford in that country. It damages infrastructure, it damages, kills life, and a lot of things happens. With that staggering economy, going to war is really the least thing. And what brings us here is an ego. That is the way I look at it. They should have come to terms. They should have discussed. I blame both the Prime Minister and the TPLF leaders on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eshetu. Engineer Ibroshe, let me come back to you. In your assessment, is this war on Tigray is really a war to restore rule and order according to what the Prime Minister of Ethiopia alleges? Is there any hidden agenda behind this war? Because we are getting multilateral challenges facing that country post or during this war, especially the ideological war between the Oromos and those who are trying to bring the unitary system back.
Thank you, Muste. Before I answer this question, please let me say something.
Go ahead, please.
We all are Oromos. What I mean, you and Dr. Eshetu and the others. But we are discussing in English language because we have a message to pass to non-Oromo speakers. That's why we are speaking English.
Yes.
Therefore, we have to define the rule of law in terms of English and the translation or the implementation of that word in that country, which is in Ethiopia. The word rule of law in English language means the rule of law stated in the country's constitution by the constitution or by law document. It's not by the word or by willing of somebody else. In case of a person or a group of people breaches the rule of law, call it civil or criminal matters, the law enforcement officers such as police and the military, let's call it, would show up and enforce the law. Law enforcement officers can use their limited force according to the rule of regulation, the rule and the regulation of the country, and can bring a unlawful person or group of people to justice. They bring to justice. They have no justice on their hand. Justice would be served only in the court of law. The objective of having rule of law in one country is to protect and serve the people.
Exactly.
In this case, the rule of law in English has this meaning and more. Having said that, the term, the rule of law in Ethiopia has been practiced contrary to the English term, the rule of law. It's completely opposite meaning, has an opposite meaning and implementation in Ethiopia. In short, instead of just going into the detail, in short, the meaning of rule of law in Ethiopia is, according to me, changing itself to kill and control. English-speaking world community should understand the pretext of usage of the rule of law by English language.
Speaking from the Ethiopian context, we know that from successive Ethiopian regimes usually use this term, rule of law, to silence their opposition leaders and political opponents. So I'm glad you clarified that. So what I was heading into was hiding behind this rule of law. What was really the true mission of war? If you could elaborate on that, Engineer Ibroshe.
Exactly. So I'm coming to that point. The answer for that question is using the pretext, restoring a rule of law, as you say, is a reason given to justify a kill and control.
Kill and control.
A kill and control its own citizen. Under this pretext, a lot of innocent people have been killed all over the country, in general, and in Oromia in particular. So when Ethiopia used the pretext or the word a rule of law, it meant it is a kill and control. So they are covering up with this word and using their own force, or excessive force actually, unnecessary force to innocent people, and try to take off their liberty and control. It is a matter of just proceeding or progressing their agenda into the people without their will. It is in all over the country. It is the same in Tigray. Let's say they are waging a war against Tigray people or TPLF under the pretext of control. I mean, the rule of law. It is just a cover up. The rule of law is not the reason. It is to control Tigrayan people by killing. That's all what it is. So is
Thank you very much.
So okay.
Thank you, Ibroshe. Let's move. as I tried to say earlier, this program appears on Gada News Network once a week. So we try to cover a vast majority of topics. If you could try to brief on your response, I will appreciate that. Dr. Eshetu, let me come back to you. And recently, the European Union and the American State Department passed a resolution to hold the budget from Ethiopia. To be specific, European Union held 90 million euros, and I believe the American foreign aid held about 143 million US dollar. Based on this, a country like Ethiopia that depends on foreign aid for a majority of its fiscal year budgets, what is the ramification of such a diplomatic crisis?
Thank you, Muste, for this question. This is really very burning question. For a country like Ethiopia, that money is really significant. This is a beginning. To me, this is a beginning because I remember once Dr. Awolalo was saying that he regrets that he nominated Prime Minister for the Nobel Prize. But to me, I'm glad that he nominated him.
Yes.
That's why we are now at this stage, because if the Prime Minister was not nominated and there was not a peace, laureate, probably this issue wouldn't have, captured the international attention. We have so many problems in that country for a long time, but this is the first time that very fast and significant opposition came from the international community. This is the time that the Prime Minister has to really sit down and think if he really wanted to, help that country progress, help that country to democratize. This is a signal. This is the starting. And this money is really significant. And it is showing that the Prime Minister and his government is losing a diplomatic war. It's clearly losing the diplomatic war. So European Union and the US are one of the biggest allies of that country and that government. And losing these two strong and huge support is tantamount to a significant loss of diplomatic ties. And there could also be some other issues in addition to the war in Tigray, because there is thousands of people fled to neighboring country. They're looking for support, help, and also there are a significant number of political prisoners in prison, Ethiopia. So this is a prime minister who indicated and was saying he is going to change this country. He's going to change the democratic system. He is the one who clearly admits in public that his previous government was the one terrorizing the people and so on. So people and international community are expecting something different, not the same thing. So every politicians in jail, all that is going to cost him in diplomatic war, and as well as the war in Tigray. They have to sit down again, really try to stop this war. And that is, I think, the way to win this diplomatic war again. Otherwise, it is going to be a very big loss, and the ramification of this is the start and the beginning. So this is a warning to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eshetu. Dr. Engineer Ibroshe, we are Canadian citizens here, and I knew you were involved in a tremendous amount of advocacy job when it comes to the plights of Oromo people. As you know, Canada is the third largest donor to Ethiopia in the world, and Ethiopia is the first the largest recipient of foreign aid from Canada, ranking in Africa. To be exact, according to the statistics we have from 2017 to 2018, Canada gives to Ethiopia up to $198 million every year. As a Canadian citizen, what should the Oromo people in particular and the Ethiopian nationalities do to bring this awareness to the human rights violation in Ethiopia to Canadian government?
Thank you, Mr. EU, US, and other countries' foreign aid for Ethiopia or other countries intended to be aligned with their interests, particularly countries' interests, and for promoting economic development, democracy, human rights, and the governance, and multi-sectors, humanitarian assistance, education and the social services like health, peace and security, and environment and such a thing. So they would like to promote that in particular country like Ethiopia, the one that cannot afford to sustain its life by itself. So like we see in August 2020, which is this year, US halted about $130 million foreign assistance fund to Ethiopia over dam dispute with Egypt and Sudan. In the other way, in December, which is this month, EU suspended about 90 million euro in aid to Ethiopian for internal conflict. In general, internal conflict is the major one, the TPLF's Tigray war. So Ethiopian government depends on foreign aid. It will affect the above all sectors. It will paralyze all of those. Although the EU and the US are not the only donors, they still get some money from the other countries, but it will affect tremendously. Regarding Canadian, Ethiopia is the top recipient of Canadian foreign aid in the world. So to let the Canadian government aware of the political development in Ethiopia, we Canadians should keep communicating through our member of parliament, as we have been doing, and conduct awareness seminars, conferences, and also make a rally. That's all I can say.
Thank you very much. Indeed, recently I spoke to, I believe, Dr. Eshetu regarding one of the communication that I got from the Canadian International Development Director, Ms. Karen, and her foreign press secretary, that they were thinking they are doing a noble job by donating for immediate release about 3 million Canadian dollars for those who were displaced from Tigray region. And I have to bring to their attention that there is a crisis going on for the past 2 years in Oromia as well. So indeed, we need to have a lot of work to do to bring them up to speed what is going on in Africa. Let us move to another topic. Dr. Eshetu, let's talk about the federalism and ethnic federalism in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a multi-ethnic federation state, and this multi-ethnic federation indeed brought by the will of people, and it is a fundamental intention was to provide equal share to opportunities in that country within their own region and to share the federal power. Lately, there is a war on ethnic federalism during and post the conflict in Tigray. We can't even say post because the conflict is already still going on. But there are groups that says once we defeat TPLF, the next move is to dismantle ethnic federalism. Why this war is going on ethnic federalism, and why they scared of ethnic federalism?
Thank you, Muste. I just want to digress a little bit on this topic because when we are talking about forms of government, there are different kinds of forms of government. I just want to mention only three of that.
Please.
That is a confederation, like confederation, unitary government, and a federation system. When we're talking about confederation, that is a union of two sovereign countries. They come together and they will have some kind of treaty. It could be military, foreign, communication, or some trade kind of thing. It's a kind of, a union we see in European Union. They are all independent sovereign countries, but they do have some common things that brings them together. But they are not in a confederation format, but they are in a union. The current maybe the kind of things that go between Isaias and Abiy could end up kind of confederation. Because if there is a will and a good virtue of common understanding, Eritrea is a sovereign state, Ethiopia is a sovereign state, they could end up as a confederation. But that all depends on the how much do they trust each other and all those kind of things. Because now on war in Tigray, even if Tigray is part of Ethiopia, there were some kind of collaboration and things like that. There is a kind of agreement. So they could end up that way. That is something else. So that kind of government can be formed. The other is a unitary state. A unitary state is, there's many countries in the world with a unitary kind of government, especially European, many of European countries are a unitary system. Ethiopia used to be a unitary system. And from there, now came to the federation. The federation is it's a level of governance. So level of governance, there is a regional level and a federal level. So there would be self-rule and shared rule kind of arrangement. Self-rule at regional level, everybody rules itself and governs itself. Then they will have also a shared rule, which is a central, strong federal government. So depending how the arrangement, there could be a strong federal government or a weak federal government. By the way, I'm not a specialist on governance and things like that. From what I went through and from what I read, just that is what I'm trying to put forward. So in this kind of thing, when we come to federation, the unitary most of the time ends up into a federal system because there would be questions and requests for more autonomy from within the unitary system. So there is different countries that go from unitary to a federal system. So Ethiopia went that way. So when it comes to federal system, there are different kinds of federal system. There is ethnic-based federal system and geographically based federal system. So the ethnic-based federal system is because there is a question from a nation and nationality within that for more autonomy to them. So when we're looking at current Ethiopian situation, it's a multi-ethnic federation. There are people who argue this multi-ethnic federation is affecting our unity, affecting the coming together of people. It is diversifying us more. It is a disaster for the country and so on. But what they need to understand is why this multinational federal system came to existence. And is that because Wayane wanted it, or was that because most of the nation and nationalities in that country wanted it? It didn't come for nothing because there was past grievances in that country by various nations and nationalities. People were, degraded. People were, insulted because of their culture, because of their language, and because of their identity. So they wanted to assert their identity, their language, and their culture. So because of this, there were a lot of liberation fronts in that country. There is the Oromo Liberation Front, the TPLF, the Tigray Liberation Front, the Ogaden Liberation Front, the Sidama Liberation. There was a lot of liberation. These all people or these all organizations were fighting for the freedom of their people so that their people will have the dignity they deserve within that country. So from that perspective, those people who wanted to have a unitary system and disguising the multi-ethnic system were those who were privileged during a unitary system. They wanted to go back there because they were a beneficiary of that system. But most of the people were not beneficiary of that system. That's why. And to me, it is their right that they raised those things, but especially during this transitional time, this should have been hammered out. This should have been discussed. And those the federalists and the unitarist kind of mindset should be argued. And for one and for all, this thing has to be settled. That is how you can build the country in a more strong understanding of each other. Otherwise, looking at this ethnic federalism is kind of evil approach, doesn't take us anywhere. When we look at the past 27 years, this ethnic federalism, maybe some of the things raised may have some ground, because the ethnic federalism over the last 27 years was not properly used. There is what you call symmetric and asymmetric federalism power. Asymmetric is when the power is not equally distributed among the different regional governments. When we look, there were the 4 parties that governed the country. The others were considered as, supporters, subordinate, or whatever they call them, like the Somali regional government, the Benishangul, and all those, they have no say in the federal government because they were not part of the party that is ruling the country. But they were in another form, they were there, they were not there, kind of thing. So it is how the ethnic federalism was implemented is the problem, because they should have more, the argument to me, the argument at this time shouldn't have to be to go back to unitary system, but it should be how to democratize this ethnic federalism to create more democracy and more mobility, and so that people could be, participate in any political system anywhere in the region. Is not because of its ethnic background, but because how they think for that specific region. For example, if somebody wanted to be elected or participate in Oromia, as long as they do uphold the culture, the moral and the language of Oromo, they should get the chance. That should be the approach. It should be. Otherwise, thinking to dismantle this ethnic federalism, I don't think it's going to work. But it will take the country into another wrong direction and may end up into what I initially said as a confederation system, because all of this may disintegrate. Like we saw those things happen in other countries like Yugoslavia. It just happened. it is not something that didn't happen. It happened. If they push, things would go wrong. So what they have to focus on is to put more democracy and democratize the system and work in that direction. Otherwise, going against that is counterproductive.
Thank you very much. Engineer Ibroshe, Dr. Eshetu answered my question that I was about to ask you, but if you may add anything more, that you are welcome. And I want you to tell me this. Is ethnic federalism was the artwork of TPLF, or it was created by the will of people, like Dr. Eshetu said? Is ethnic federalism is the life support of Ethiopia, or it is the system that is endangering the unity of Ethiopia, leading to disintegration?
Thank you, Mr. Ethnic federalism is not only the willing of TPLF. It is the vast majority of ethnic nations, or multi-nation and nationality country, which is Ethiopia. The majority of ethnic groups would like to have this, and it is a solution for it too. So we know, as it is already mentioned enough by Dr. Eshetu, but just to repeat in a different angle, Ethiopia is a home of multi-nation and nationalities, which means different languages, have a different culture, and different religious differences, and a multi-historical background. It's very important. Multi-historical backgrounds. These are the factors that makes this country beautiful. The difference is a beauty in reality, if you deal with it in the right way. The root problem of the consecutive Ethiopian empire rulers came from a failure to recognize the beauty of these differences. Unless this problem solved, the misery of Ethiopian people will continue, which means the problem of the country is it is ethnical. This multi-ethnic country with a different language and the cultures wanted to be recognized and respected. So it is a willing of the people to have an ethnic federal arrangement. The current ethnic federal arrangement is the only way to go to solve the Ethiopian people's endless misery. Having said that, the current ethnic federal arrangement lacks the true implementation, as Dr. Eshetu said. Implementation of already written constitution. So that has to be solved. That's one of the problems. The vast majority of the ethnic groups are happy to have ethnic federal arrangement, provided the implementation, the true implementation, is realized. Therefore, by implementing the current federal arrangement, a peaceful and stable Ethiopia can be realized. The only way to go. There is no other option. An attempt to go back to military system is just like an invitation to endless war in that country.
Thank you very much. Let us quickly go. I have two most important topics.
Let me add something here, Muste, on this federalism. There is one thing that is going around, which is those who are thinking going back to the unitary system, they still say, no, we also think of federal system. But it's not a multi-ethnic federal system, but a federal system that is based on geography, where it could be either divided into east, west, north, south, or could be like the old Derg system, provincial territories, like so on. But when they were talking this, those liberation fronts or any other, for that matter, any other political organization, they never started or they never requested a federal system. Even within that context, they never did that. And Now, because they couldn't defend the multi-ethnic one, they are proposing this one. This is the same thing like the unitary system, because in that old system, if those provinces were provided self-governance, that is what the geography federation means. Is that going to answer the question of nations and nationalities? Does that really answer that question? I don't think so. And when they are talking about this geographic based federalism, what we need to know is if they are going back to the Berg system and they use that, uplift that division into a federal system, some of the regions, like the Tigray region, would be a Tigray region. It's a federal region again, because it used to be Tigray as it is. But the problem is with the Oromia. Would the Oromo people accept? And this kind of question and this kind of proposal should come from the Oromo people, if that benefits the Oromo people. But if the Oromo people want to stay together, it should be decided that way. Thank you.
You know, you mentioned earlier the reason for multi-ethnic federalism in Ethiopia came to existence was because of the collective oppression, collective subjugation that nation and nationalities suffered in the hands of subsequent Ethiopian regimes. Those liberation frontists fought to bring equal rights, the right to self-rule in the region, and the collective shared power in federal Ethiopia. That is what those who will never admit the past injustice in Ethiopia are dreaming. And like you said, I don't think that will ever happen in that empire. Anyways, let's move into a broad topic that I want you guys to cover within probably 10 minutes. When Abiy Ahmed came to power, he promised a very genuine reform. He invited exiled political parties. He released Oromo and nation and nationalities political leaders. He widened the freedom of speech, and he allowed press freedom. But those achievements quickly relapsed, and Ethiopia those days became one of the most dictatorial regime in the world, where journalists and opponent political leaders are rotting in jail. Dr. Eshetu, what happened? What happened to that promised land?
Thank you, Muste. This is really bizarre for most of us, how we went back to square one, really. It was a big promise. The Prime Minister really, in the history of that country, received significant support from all walks of life, all walks of people. You know, it doesn't matter what religion, it doesn't matter which nationality, everybody supported, because they think that he's going to bring that change, you know, the change that the young people died for. But to me, the problem started with the narratives. The narratives the Prime Minister started to put forward is where the problem lies. Because the first narrative, when he started mentioning about Menelik, what is the status of Menelik in that society? How many of Ethiopians really look up to Menelik? Why does he want to go into those kind of controversy? These are really very important, because in Ethiopian politics, if you want to bring together, you don't have to go and scratch the wounds. He started mentioning, I'm gonna bring back the old glory of Ethiopia. Did we really have old common glory? Did we have the glory really? No. He, as a prime minister, thinking to bring together this diverse society, he should have abstained from this kind of controversy, controversial words, and so on. Most of the time, he uses those kind of controversial things. He could be a good person, maybe no, but those are, as a prime minister, whatever you say, go into the ears of people with diverse interest, diverse background. So that is where the problem lies. And when he says the old glory, yeah, of course, there is a glory for some, but not for all. And those who didn't have the glory start to think twice and say, did we have a glory? Which glory is he talking about? Or is he taking us back to our old problem? These are what is going in the minds of the people. So every time he said something that is controversial, things change. Maybe at the beginning, people start to say, okay, maybe those are just simple words or something. Now he starts to build the statue of Menelik in the palace. Really? Do we need to spend that much amount of money? How can the statue of Menelik really bring the people together? How would the Oromo, the Somalis, the Walaitas will be on board on this statue? I don't really understand how he thought that kind of action will bring everybody together. It might convince some part of the society, maybe some CTA elites from the Amaras and some maybe old, bourgeois system, but not everybody would be happy. Do we really need at that time? There was so many things that could have been done. There were so many things that could be discussed instead of doing those kind of things. So those are where the problem lies. And I think the issue with TPLF was also partly because of this kind of narratives. The narratives that is going from the palace is creating animosity and creating trust issue. So that is where the problem lies.
Exactly.
Because the federal is based on the constituent government. They do have some, the regional government has its own power. So these are some of the things, and the prime minister released so many of the political prisoners and a lot of people, but now everybody is going back into prison. How would that really resonate towards reforming, towards democracy? Those are the issue. Now there is a lot of other words that come out from, I don't know how they think, for example, at the beginning, daylight highness. Daylight highness, maybe he has a certain group where he targeted to say that, but the people didn't take it that way. They were using across the board the whole people, coming, representing those kind of things. And now even junta, they're using the word junta, but maybe they are using towards a specific certain circle, but the other group are not using that way. So this is where you need to be really careful when you're using some words. It's not like, a street boy, you just say whatever you want. This is a powerful man leading the country. They have to really be sure what words they are using. So those words signifies in bringing together people. those words really help us to hammer out some of the conflicts, the issues, the mistrusts, and things like that. So I think those are some of the things. And the other is how they are doing it within their own circle. Some of, at least, nationalist kind of mentalities are purged out, like Lamma Magarsa and others as well. They're removed from the thing. And those kind of things started to make suspicion in people. And people start to, and again, nowadays, people are in prison. When the judge releases them on bail, the police won't release them. So what is the difference with the previous one? Except there is a change in the top leadership. So these are some of the things, but to me, I don't know whether Abiy wanted to consolidate the power, because that is what it shows generally.
Exactly.
What is going on, what people understand is consolidating power than doing or making the transition and the reform and things like that. So because the reform should be started reforming the institutions, but none of the institutions were reformed. So these are some of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eshetu. Engineer Ibroshe, there are disturbing reports coming in from Ethiopia these days. For example, speaking Afan Oromo can put somebody in trouble in Finfinne these days. Oromo intellectuals were sent to prison. For example, one of the doctors, I believe his name is Dr. Hussein, or so, because he formed Oromo intellectual group, thrown into prison. And because he was a critic of the Madammar book. In another instance, Oromo farmers, students, businessmen and women were thrown into jail in record number compared to even the past 27, 28 years under TPLF regime. There are people who are calling Oromos by derogatory names from within the government apparatus, and none of those people were brought to question or to justice. So based on those circumstances, there are groups or majority of people, especially Oromos and nationalities, who are saying we are better off under the previous regime. What is your take on those?
Thank you, Mr. Going back to the previous regime, if I understood it right, the previous regime and the current regime are the continuation of the same system, which is a federal arrangement. But if they are willing to go back more than that, it is just, yeah, it's not the way to go. And the only thing they have to do is freedom doesn't come for free. They have to keep fighting. They have to keep struggling. They have to keep demanding and requesting the implementation of the real, the two federal constitutional rights. So they shouldn't give up. As far as I'm concerned, there is no second option or a middle ground to bring a stable and peaceful Ethiopia. The only way to go forward is to implement the current ethnic federal arrangement according to the constitution. I'm glad that Dr. Eshetu already mentioned about ethnic federal arrangement or federal arrangement. The geographical federal arrangement is not the same. It's completely different. I'm saying clearly ethnic federal arrangement. Ethnic word has to be there. And there are some people who say ethnic federalism doesn't exist in the world. God's sake. Do they know the world? We just can give an example. Canada by itself is partially, it is ethnic federal. Think about Quebec. Quebec is a French-speaking province that wants to be its own independent. Yeah. I was here when they made their own what we call the referendum for independence. So the federal, the ethnic federalism do exist in a different way in different countries. But Ethiopia can be specifically different, and it is the only way to go, which means the problem with Ethiopia is to respect the difference. If they don't do that, the problem will continue. Getting into trouble because of someone's political view or religious belief, or let's say ethnic background, because of your ethnic background, is against the current constitution. People shouldn't be afraid to fight it. Go, you have to fight back. Keep fighting. When I say keep fighting, it's not a physical struggle. The government has an obligation to bring those harmful individuals to justice, while the people have the right to keep fighting back for their basic right as stated in the Constitution. Therefore, I cannot imagine or accept anything from all the ethnic groups, discrimination or annihilation in a different way because of their background is unacceptable. They have to fight back. That's the only way. Never give up. Like you said, a lot of people in that country is in jail after a massive release, which is really good. How much was it to show how much people were in the jail? Now they put back all the users and political prisoners back into the same jail. Oromo golden boys are in prison just because of their political view. They haven't committed any crime. Dr. Eshetu already mentioned that he is glad to have, Abiy to have nominated or awarded as a Nobel Prize winner. The reason for that is world and the others are focusing their eyes onto the country and the Abiy. That's why we see the full attention of the world against Ethiopia at this time. Oromo's eyes, our eyes, and the world eyes are on the political prisoners. So it is not an easy thing that we should live as is. For the sake of the stability of the country, which is Ethiopia, the Ethiopian government must release all political prisoners, including the golden boys, Johar Mohammed, Baqqala Garba, and Abdi Ragasa, and the others all. Bring them onto the discussion on the table. Our only solution in Ethiopia is to sit down and discuss. No war. War is not going to help. These political prisoners, like Baqqala Garba and Johar Mohammed and Abdi Ragasa, they have a lot to offer to Ethiopia than to harm Ethiopia. So they have to bring them down, release them, and discuss with them, and proceed in a positive way for stable Ethiopia. If they are not going to do this, the trouble will continue. For example, let's say the TPLF war that happening now is not going to solve any problem. They even made a bigger problem into that country. Amhara and the TPLF's animosity increased. Eritrean and Ethiopian, Eritrean and TPLF's or Tigrayan people animosity increased from the last one. Oromo and Eritrean animosity even came to the point now.
Yeah.
So don't expect any peace in Eritrea. Forget about Ethiopia. Ethiopia is already destroyed. It is destroyed. So war and the killing of the people, or the taking of the right of the individuals is not going to help this country. The only way to go is release all political prisoners, open the political spaces, and make the media free, and then discuss and use the potential of these golden boys, the potential and knowledge of these Oromo golden boys, like Johar Mohammed. There's no reason to put him in jail. Release him. And Baqqala Garba and the others, and use them in a positive way, not only for Ethiopia. These are a golden voice of Africa.
Thank you very much, Engineer Ibroshe. You mentioned very interesting topics regarding the federal arrangement of Canada compared to Ethiopia. There are those groups who try to justify the dismantling of ethnic federalism to rearrange it in Canadian context. There is a concept that they don't understand or they didn't do their homework. Like you said, Canada acknowledges the charter rights of treaty rights of the Aboriginal people of Canada, their special treatment they have in this land. The previous Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper and the current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau came on a national television, apologized for the past injustice done to Aboriginal people, and they promised to truth and reconciliation of what happened in this country. And each and every state, province in Canada respects the treaty rights of the Aboriginal people as the first nation in this land. So Ethiopia doesn't even acknowledge the massacre that happens in Anole and Chalanko. And so I don't really understand how they expect the truth and reconciliation to come into that land. Due to limited time we have, I concluded the question that I have. I'll give you an opportunity to both of you, a maximum of 1 minute or two, if there is any point you need to add. Dr. Eshetu, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Muste, for really inviting us on behalf of the Gada News Network to view our, our mind and just to share our what we think for our people and for Ethiopian government as well. And this is really very critical time. The Oromos, we shoulder the issue of that country. We need to understand this. We shoulder the problem of that country. We are the base of that country. So I think we need to unite. That is my message. The Oromo has to unite. And the other nation and nationalities, especially those with previous privilege, they have to stop this madness. This is my message for them as well, really. They have to stop this madness because Ethiopia is not going back in time. History never go back. It's normally, you need to build on what is already formed. So if there is a problem, things should be discussed and has to be rectified on where the problem lies. Other than that, going back is not a solution. And I really advise the Prime Minister because there are a lot of capable people in that country, those including those in prison. Release them, sit down, discuss about the future of this country. Really, not wishy-washy kind of advice, but there are really capable people. I know there's some people who are capable to advise and pushed away, and some of them are already in prison, but they has to sit down and listen to them and discuss the future of this country. And I really wish we don't go back to the old problem in that country, but we need to fix what is wrong in the existing system and democratize that country. And that is my message. And I hope we would come to this conclusion. And they need to really stop killing people. There is a lot of killing going around in Oromia, which has been really hidden because of the war in the north. So please don't kill people and don't just simply harass and imprison because of their political views and ideology. I think that is diversity is basically a beauty. So they need to accommodate that diversity. And so this is my message and my advice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eshetu. Ibroshe, 1 minute, please.
Oh, okay. In short, Oromo people are the largest ethnic group in Ethiopia. They deserve the right of having the largest share of all the sectors in Ethiopia. The truth of the matter is nothing to be ashamed from having your freedom or from requesting your freedom and or asking for your share. The message I have for Oromo people are keep demanding the respect of implementation of the Oromo language to be as the official federal language. Nothing to be ashamed. It is the truth, and they have a full right to get it. Keep demanding the right of infinite historical ownership. Thinking the displaced Oromos from the Finfinne area compensation is still outstanding. Keep demanding the fight of self-governance of the Oromia region, as stated by the Constitution, because the current one is not really implemented. Keep demanding the release of all political prisoners. When we say this, it's not only Oromo. All political prisoners in Ethiopia are valuable, including Jawar Mohammed and Bakala Garba and Abdul Gasa. Use all venues. This is the message for the Oromos. All venues, all abilities, all aspects of the struggle to realize the freedom that Oromo deserves as an individual and as a group. Thank you.
Dear our viewers from Gada News Network, I would like to say thank you, and I would like to say thank you to my valued guest, Dr. Eshetu Bashada and Engineer Ibroshe. Until next time, have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, all of you guys.
Nubeekuuf barshoror kaa'u kanaaf garaa jabaatu irreefumna qabaniin ijibbaata falmatu. Nuun miti farda keenya hin beeku bareechanii. Gaafa gaarreen Adowaa gaafa maqaleessanii. Nuun miti farda keenya hin beeku bareechanii. Gaafa gaarreen Adowaa gaafa maqaleessanii. Gaafa lola Adowaa gaafa maqaleessanii. Nuun miti farda keenya hin beeku bareechanii. Gaafa gaarreen Adowaa gaafa maqaleessanii. Gaafa maqaleessanii. Gaafa maqaleessanii. Gaafa maqaleessanii. Nan sobee. Nan sobee. Nan sobee ijoollee Oromoo. Nan sobee. Gameessa koo yaa Badaama. Oromoo koo yaa Badaama yaa Badaalee yaa Bashaanqoo soorii farda kee qopheessi. Soorii farda kee qopheessi eeboo kee qarii soroorsi gaachana fannoo irraa buusi. Roorroo didee sirra marse maaliif duuta mana teesse. Alaa eegaa kinabjootiin abjuun taane kaafadhu farda keelloli 4 kiiloof situ aane. Kaafadhu farda keelloli 4 kiiloof situ aane. Kaafadhu bulloo keelloli 4 kiiloof situ aane. Kaafadhu eeboo keelloli 4 kiiloof situ aane. Kaafadhu mancaa keelloli 4 kiiloof situ aane. 4 kiiloof situ aane. 4 kiiloof situ aane. Maasaan gamaa lafan baatu. Maasaan gamaa lafan baatu. Masangama lafambatu talba facafa tatati talba facafa tatati nuti dune tokkonta'u wal gaggalafa tatati emule abora borri dolamale mal goti korri kabi Masangama lafambatu talba facafa tatati nuti dune tokkonta'u wal gaggalafa tatati emule agarbachisa danga ofi mantu gaddisa Oliga kanagadita fi challesan manama qerro jabesan odu soba malif odesi saba qulqulluma turesan emule agarbachisa oromiya mantu gaddisa kabi kanagadita fi challesan manama qerro jabesan odu dara malif odesan saba qulqulluma turesan emule agarbachisa oromiya mantu gaddisa kabiga sanga ofa jennan ofne bane shakariti kushanin bitata kushan tamam bitagarini ya alama kawe ta antola labanini ya marre yodu e jabanga fabi ambo ke stalola ata shakar gaye matani abani yodu e matiram badu makani burre aga didu woso masi matini tendidu hararge rallola ata shakar gaye matani abani yodu e matiram badu makani burre aga didu woso masi matini tendidu hararge rallola ata shakar gaye matani abani yodu e matiram badu makani burre aga didu woso masi matini tendidu abi hararge rallola ata shakar gaye matani abani yodu e matiram